Paris, London, Rome, Prague. The number of incredibly beautiful cities in Europe is abundant. So, if Prague made the list of the most visited cities in Europe, it has to be for a reason. Last Christmas, I spent 5 days in the Czech capital and loved every moment of it. In this video, I'll take you on a journey through this enchanting city, which has inspired some of history's greatest writers and composers, to help you plan your own unforgettable visit. We begin our exploration in the heart of the city, the Old Town Square. I visited Prague in late December when most of the Christmas decorations were still up. The square was alive with the festive spirit thanks to the world-famous Christmas market, with its magnificent lights, wooden stalls, and the smell of Trdelník, mulled wine and roasted chestnuts filling the air. And even though I constantly regretted visiting at this time of the year because of the freezing cold, it did make the city look even prettier. The main attraction in Prague is hard to pinpoint, but it's tough to argue against the old town hall tower, home to the city's iconic astronomical clock. This clock, first installed in 1410, is one of the oldest working astronomical clocks in the world. It doesn't just tell time, it displays the positions of the sun and moon, the zodiac signs, and even the current phase of the moon. Every hour it comes to life with a charming procession of figures. If you wait until the end of the section, I will show you how this looks like at night. But let's go beyond the clock and explore the tower itself. The queue to enter was quite long, making the cold even more unbearable. After finally getting tickets priced at 300 Czech crowns or about 12 euros, we make our way up to the top. The tower is connected to the old town hall, so the first 3 floors feel more like walking through a historic building than a medieval tower. After about 3 floors, the traditional stairs give way to the flat ramp leading to the top. For those unable to walk, there's also 2 separate elevators available. At the summit, you're rewarded with breathtaking panoramic views of Prague. The city unfolds in every direction, red rooftops, church spires, and the magnificent Prague Castle in the distance. From this vantage point, the bustling streets below seem quiet, and you're left to marvel at the timeless beauty of the Czech capital. Right next to the clock tower we find the Church of St. Nicholas, a stunning example of Baroque architecture. The church was built in the early 18th century and is renowned for its impressive frescoes, intricate stucco work, and the grand dome that dominates the skyline. Inside, the Baroque altars and ornate decorations are truly breathtaking. The church's acoustics are also famous and is often used for classical concerts, giving visitors a chance to experience its beauty both visually and acoustically. The 2 monumental towers just outside the main square and directly opposite of the clock tower belong to the stunning Church of Our Lady Before Tin. Visiting the church is free of charge, but it's important to note that it's closed for much of the day. Be sure to check the opening hours and plan your visit accordingly. This Gothic masterpiece dates back to the 14th century and served as a spiritual center for Prague's hillside during the religious reforms of the 15th century. The church's distinctive twin spires, each slightly different in design, symbolize the masculine and feminine aspects of faith. Heading a bit further east, we arrive at the Powder Tower, an imposing Gothic structure that once served as a gateway to the city center. Tickets can be purchased right at the small entrance, and from there you can climb up to the top. The stairs are narrow and steep with a tight radius, making the climb a bit challenging, especially when passing others. Along the way there are a few levels with small exhibitions, detailing the tower's history and various renovation efforts over the years. At the top, we are rewarded with stunning views of the old town, including the clock tower and cathedral we just explored. I visited on a foggy day, which limited how far I could see, but added an almost mythical charm to the cityscape. Prague truly boasts one of the most beautiful skylines in Europe, perhaps even the world. Both the Powder Tower and Clock Tower offer fantastic views, but they're quite similar. If you're short on time or want to avoid long ticket queues, the Powder Tower is a great alternative to the Clock Tower. Like any major European city, Prague boasts an impressive theatre scene. In fact, it has 2 grand theatres, the National Theatre and the States Theatre. While the National Theatre is larger, locals often say the States Theatre is the most beautiful of the 2. That's why I decided to visit it. The story of this theatre is closely tied in many ways to one of the world's most important and talented composers, DJ just kidding, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Born in Salzburg in 1756, Mozart is now celebrated worldwide, but he wasn't particularly appreciated in his native Austria during his lifetime. By chance, he connected with the creative director of the Estates Theatre, which led him to move to Prague. Here, He composed and premiered several operas, including 2 masterpieces that debuted on this very stage. The inside of the theater fits 674 people, which makes it a cozy and intimate venue for musical performances. One standout feature of the interior is the chandelier. Can you guess how many light bulbs it has? Wrong. Well, probably. Surprisingly few, only 100. Yet somehow those 100 light bulbs light up the entire room. The theater was built between 1781 and 1783, but was renovated just a few decades ago, and again it has to do with our Wolfgang, almost 2 centuries after his death. In the 1980s, Czech director Milos Forman chose the Estates Theatre as a key filming location for his biographical masterpiece Amadeus, which went on to win 8 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Director. At the time, the Czechoslovak government was hesitant to let an immigrant like Forman film in Prague. So, in a stroke of genius, they struck a deal and let Hollywood cover the renovation bill. Pretty smart, huh? Speaking of Milos Forman, he is considered one of the greatest directors of all time. While Amadeus is a cinematic gem, the only other film that might even be more impressive is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest with Jack Nicholson. Fun fact, it's one of just 3 films in history to win all 5 major Academy Awards. Oh, and Forman was born just an hour outside of Prague. Another of Prague's absolutely stunning landmarks is Charles Bridge, named after the Holy Roman Empire King Charles IV, who was also King of Bohemia at the time of its construction. Completed in 1402, this iconic bridge was the only connection between the Old Town to the east and Prague Castle and New Town to the west for over 400 years. Today, it's incredibly crowded no matter the season, which is a little puzzling. After all, the best views of the bridge aren't from the bridge itself, but from along the riverbanks. Let's check them out. Before stepping onto the bridge, we turn left and stroll along the riverside promenade. From here, you get a spectacular view of the bridge spanning the almost frozen river, the Prague Castle rising majestically in the background. If you're looking to capture the perfect photo of Prague, this is the spot. Still, we do what people have been doing for centuries, even long before tourists started clogging the narrow streets and alleys. We'll cross the bridge. As you walk across Charles Bridge, you'll notice its 30 statues of saints lining the sides, most of which are replicas today, with the originals preserved in the National Museum. These statues, many created in the 17th century, offer a fascinating glimpse into Baroque artistry and serve as an important historical feature of the bridge. After reaching the west bank of the river, we immediately turn right and make our way to the museum dedicated to one of Prague's most famous sons, Franz Kafka. Though the museum isn't large, it's visually stunning and offers a deep dive into Kafka's life and works, giving insights into the mind of one of the 20th century's most influential authors. Kafka was born in 1883 in Prague and initially studied law. However, his job at an insurance company was far from fulfilling. It was painful for someone with such creative aspirations. He later took a job that allowed him to write in the afternoons, but despite his passion for writing, he never finished a single novel. In fact, most of what he wrote he discarded. In 1917, Kafka was diagnosed with tuberculosis, and his health gradually deteriorated until he passed away in 1924, at the young age of 40. While Kafka's works are now world famous, he was largely unknown during his lifetime. He never thought his writing was worthy of publication, and it was until years after his death that his close friends Max Brod defied Kafka's wishes and published his novels. This posthumous act cemented Kafka's place as one of the most influential writers of the 20th century. His most famous works include Metamorphosis, The Trial, and The Castle. These books were all written in German, but the English translations have become iconic as well. Kafka's themes often explore absurdity and surrealism, describing ordinary people trapped in seemingly ordinary situations that spiral into the bizarre and uncontrollable. In The Trial, for example, the protagonist K is accused of a crime he knows nothing about, and nobody explains the charges. His search for justice is both futile and terrifying, as he's stuck in a system with no way out. What you're seeing now is a scene from the 1962 film The Trial, based on Kafka's novel. Directed by Orson Welles, who is best known for Citizen Kane, the film stars Anthony Perkins, famously Norman Bates from Psycho, and Romy Schneider, the German actress known for her portrayal of Sissy. Enough movie trivia for now. Go watch the movie if you haven't already. The surreal nature of Kafka's work gave rise to the term Kafkaesque, describing situations that are absurd, confusing, and difficult to explain to those living through them.
A laundromat is totally corporate.
Corporate laundromat.
It's like rigid, all kinds of red tape. My boss is a dick. The owner's super dick. I'm not worthy or whatever to meet him, but I guess everybody's scared of the dude. The place is full of dead-eyed douchebags. The hours suck and nobody knows what's going on, so...
Sounds kind of Kafkaesque.
Yeah. Totally Kafkaesque.
From Kafka's museum, it's only a short walk to the castle that overlooks the entire city. This castle is another must-see in Prague, as it holds much of the city's and country's history. To To get there from Charles Bridge, just follow the signs directing you to Prague Hrad and you reach it easily. Well, if easy means pushing through hundreds of people and climbing up a hill. Once you make it though, the view of Prague and its surrounding is absolutely stunning. On a clear day, you can even see all the way to the Eiffel Tower in Paris. Sorry, had to. The entire castle complex is beautifully maintained and some of the buildings are open to the public. A ticket costs 450 Czech crowns or around 18 euros. And it's definitely worth purchasing as it gives you access to several incredible sites. Let's check them out. The centerpiece of the area is St. Vitus Cathedral. When I arrived in the afternoon, the line was, well, let's just say it was long. If you've seen my video on the Vatican, it was that kind of long. Spend the time contemplating why I decided to visit Prague in December's freezing cold and also snapping some cute pictures of the cathedral's exterior. However, the line moved fairly quickly and after just 30 minutes we are inside. Those 30 minutes in the freezing cold felt like an eternity, let me tell you. The interior of the cathedral is relatively simple but beautiful, with several stunning stained glass windows. The cathedral's design and atmosphere give it a serene, yet awe-inspiring presence. St. Vitus Cathedral is sort of the spiritual heart of Prague. Construction started in 1344, but it took 600 years to finish. Therefore, it's a mix of different styles, as many architects from various eras had their say in its construction. Just to put this in perspective, construction started before the Aztec and Inca empires and 150 years before America was discovered, and it finished in 1929 after World War I and during the Great Depression. Thus, the cathedral combines Gothic, Neo-Gothic, Renaissance and Baroque architectural styles. Next, we head to the old royal palace, which is right across from where we were waiting in line. The inside of the palace is modest but rich with history. Only takes about 10 minutes to explore most of the smaller rooms, but you want to stay for what's next. A queue that's even longer, and I was curious to find out what was inside. After a bit of moving through rooms, we finally reach the last one, which is this one. It wasn't a long wait, but I was really wondering why to do it in the first place. After leaving the room to head to the exit, I overheard a tour guide explaining that the famous window on the left was the reason for the long queue. Well, too late for me, huh? But you know better now. The next stop on our ticket is St. George's Basilica. Though much smaller than St. Vitus Cathedral, it's in my opinion even more beautiful. Its simplicity and charm make it a real gem within the castle complex. Finally, we visit the Golden Lane, charming little street lined with colorful houses, small shops, and a defense corridor filled with old weaponry. There's even an old cinema and a torture tower. Like every Catholic city in Europe, Prague has its own share of historical dark sides, and the torture tower is no exception. Personally though, I'd much rather endure a quick torture in the tower than walk around the freezing cold I'm experiencing right now. Near the city center is a tiny but charming museum called the Illusion Art Museum Prague, or IAM. The entry fee is 350 Czech crowns or around 14 euros, which grants you access to an exhibition of mind-boggling art pieces that will truly challenge your perception. IAM is a space dedicated to optical illusions and interactive art. You find yourself immersed in a world where perspective plays tricks on the mind. Whether it's through mind-bending 3D murals, clever visual puzzles, or rooms that look like they belong in a science fiction movie, the museum offers a fun and engaging experience for visitors of all ages. It's an entertaining stop for those who want something lighthearted and creative amidst Prague's more historical sites. The largest museum in Prague is the National Museum, and it's a building that is probably the most beautiful one that I've seen in Prague. Tickets cost 300 Czech crowns, and you can either wait in line or reserve your time slot in advance. Immediately after entering, you will be amazed by the beautiful architecture and design of the interior of this historic building that was opened in 1891, even though the museum had existed in different buildings since 1818. The museum doesn't tell much about the history of the country and city, but has many fascinating exhibitions like this one about rocks, including some Dubai rocks, rocks that light up in the dark, and big rocks. But there are also exhibitions on animals from past and present, including this fish that you can send to your friends saying, literally you. Some of them really leave me with questions like, since when can sharks fly? And why is this dinosaur performing backflips? There's also information on the past of Czechia and its preceding countries, but like I said earlier, it's not the main focus of this museum. For your visit, don't forget to also walk up to the gallery of the Pantheon, and you'll be rewarded with great views of the hall below. Next to the historic building, they also constructed a modern building that you can reach with a ticket through a fancy underground tunnel. In the newer building, you find an exhibition on the Olympics and history of the 20th century when, as a Central European, I can tell you nothing really interesting happened. Nothing interesting happened. We'll make our way back to not forget the jacket we left in the historical building, admire one last time the incredible architecture and leave for the freezing cold again. The Dancing House, also known as the Fred and Ginger Building, is a striking example of modern architecture in Prague, designed by Vlado Milonic and Frank Gehry, who also designed the Museum of Pop Culture in Seattle and the Walt Disney Concert Hall in Los Angeles. Its unique shape resembles a pair of dancers, with one side appearing to lean while the other one twists. Czechia is a country crazy for sports. While most European countries love football or soccer, the Czech love ice hockey just as much. So, as a huge sports fan, I naturally bought a ticket and visited a game of local favorite Sparta Prague, an experience that I could not recommend you more if you're visiting as well. Banksy is a British artist from Bristol that many of you will know for, well, the fact that we don't know him. The mysterious graffiti artist has sprayed countless graffitis on the walls of London, New York and Palestine, raising awareness for social issues like poverty, exploitation, war or racism. His museum in Prague displays replicas of many of his famous pieces, the explanations and historic backgrounds, and it's a perfect spot to visit for a different kind of experience in the Czech capital.